In both ancient Greece and Rome, silver was more than currency or ornament. Households placed silver coins in water jugs and wine amphorae, believing the metal slowed spoilage. Soldiers and travellers favoured silver canteens, assuming the purity of the vessel protected the drink. The practice became widespread, even ritualistic. But these containers only prevented decay at the margins. Bad water still grew sour and wine still rotted in heat. Some healers began testing if silver's preservative effect could work inside the body. Physicians scraped filings from coins or hammered metal into powders, mixing them into tonics for illness and fever. The shift was quiet but profound. Instead of guarding food from spoilage, silver now targeted the flesh itself. Once inside, it escaped the reach of tools or ritual. This marked the first irreversible change. Instead of protecting what entered the body, silver entered, and from that point forward could not be taken back. Plague years shattered confidence in sacred relics and herbal poultices. Surgeons reopened cauterized wounds and packed them with linen soaked in boiled silver solutions. Eye infections, feared for causing permanent blindness, were dabbed with silver salts. Publishers compiled formularies listing silver as a ward against rot, pus, and contagion. Yet the results defied consistency. Some ulcers dried clean, others deepened or blackened. Eye treatments left streaks of grey across the lids. Faced with relapses and unrelenting fevers, apothecaries began repeating doses or escalating them. In monasteries and courtly pharmacies, silver compounds were stirred into broths and powders for swallowing. Though the metal passed untouched through most patients, others began to show changes. Pallor dulled into an ash-white tone. Infected wounds healed, but nail beds and gums tinted faint blue. The body gave no clear threshold, just warning signs misunderstood or ignored. With each dose, silver gained ground it would not return. By the mid-16th century, mercury had left a trail of weakened lungs, ruined teeth, and trembling limbs in its wake. Yet syphilis advanced, defying the almanacs. In protest and desperation, some physicians revived silver, distilled into elixirs or crushed into salts, promising gentler action for long-suffering skin and bone. But unlike mercury, silver demanded patience. Tinctures were taken daily, sometimes for years, as spots refused to heal or ulcers rubbed raw again. Patients on extended courses began to darken subtly. Faces greyed, lips lost their bloom. Some blamed diet or air. Others suspected the medicine, but found no clear proof. Apothecaries noted the shift, but rarely altered their prescriptions. Those who darkened did not die, and often reported relief. The danger arrived slowly, in traces, immune to reversal. With no threshold or crisis event, treatment became transformation by degrees. What passed the lips stayed in the tissues, and the mirror betrayed it first. By the 1700s, silver nitrate, known as lunar caustic, had secured its place in the physician's cabinet. It seared through ulcers, scarred off warts, and halted bleeding when iron failed. Surgeons dabbed it on cancerous growths and gangrenous flesh, welcoming its bite where the scalpel wouldn't reach without consequence. But chronic ulcers and recurrent pox resisted surface treatment. When external application failed to close lesions for good, practitioners turned inward. Pharmacies dispensed silver nitrate pills and drops, meant to attack infection from within. Prescribing by mouth became common, not for symptoms, but to preempt their return entirely. Few anticipated that ingested silver would settle in the skin. Pushed into the bloodstream, tiny particles passed through organs and lodged in the dermis, primed for chemical change. With exposure to light, they darkened, not overnight, but gradually. Each dose laid groundwork for discoloration that could not be undone. In medical reports from London, Paris and Vienna, physicians began describing patients with skin tinged with smoke or dark as slate. The complexion change traced not to trauma or disease, but to repeated dosing with silver nitrate or silver acetate. The names varied. The condition did not. Faces, hands and gums shaded nearly blue. Yet symptoms arrived silently. Patients improved. Appetites returned, sores receded, so doctors saw no immediate reason to stop. The discoloration caused no pain, no fever, no bleeding. Even when neighbours recoiled or strangers stared, the cure stayed in rotation. A visible price, yes, but paid after relief. For many, that bargain held. But once embedded, silver did not vanish. Physicians noticed old patients darkened more with each season. Sunlit skin deepened faster than covered parts. It wasn't disease that progressed, it was the dying of the flesh. Argyria, now unmistakable, defied reversal. The same doses that stopped infection had quietly marked the body for life. By the 1850s, clinicians began advising patients to halt internal silver treatments at the first signs of discoloration. The assumption was urgent but simple. If the drug caused the grey tint, withdrawing it would stop progression. Instructions were clear: discontinue the drops, substitute gentler tonics, avoid further exposure. But the shade did not recede. In many cases, it deepened. Faces that had dulled only slightly began to absorb colour in irregular streaks, especially after time outdoors. Physicians noticed that sunlit skin changed faster: nose ridges, cheeks, forearms. The staining was not metabolic damage, but a chemical exposure to light. The effect unsettled even seasoned practitioners. Patients improved in health but emerged with a fixed metallic aspect, smooth skin gone bluish-grey, unblinking eyes framed by pale lashes. Stateside journals began referring to the condition as statue-like, not for immobility, but because light exposed and finished what the remedy began. By the 1890s, tissue samples from discoloured patients landed under the microscopes of European pathologists. What they found was not infection nor scarring, but embedded matter. Tiny black granules, later confirmed as silver, clustered deep in the dermis and around sweat ducts, follicles and capillaries. The discovery collapsed hopes for reversal. No chemical wash reached that deep. No surgery could scrape the particles without removing tissue itself. The silver did not float loose. It had lodged, chemically fixed by light and bound in place. With cure off the table, doctors turned to concealment. Cosmetic countermeasures became medical instructions. Some recommended powders to dull the shine. Others advised veils, gloves, or tinted creams to soften the hue. But these were covers, not solutions. Cloth faded, makeup cracked, and under any noon sun, the silver reasserted itself. The body was permanently marked, beyond the reach of medicine. In the last decades of the 19th century, illustrated medical digests and urban tabloids began printing short notices of blue people, men and women whose exposure to medicinal silver had left them visibly altered. Some features aligned, years of tonic use, fading infections, but details clashed wildly between sources. One column claimed a woman turned indigo after a single month treating catarrh. Another said a miner swallowed silver drops daily for 10 years before darkening. The contradictions blurred cause and scale. What should have warned off patients instead lent the condition an air of bizarre exception or rumour. By veiling Argyria in oddity, these accounts hid the core risk, not rarity, but accumulation. The blue skin followed dosage, not destiny. Doctors saw cases in cities and small towns alike. But with no standard formula and no visible harm at first, the public mistook permanence for extreme misfortune, not design. By the early 1900s, silver-based remedies had broken free of the physician's hand, bottled under names like Silver Life Drops or Argentol Compound. Tonics moved through catalogues, rail depots and corner chemists across the US and Europe. Labelled as antiseptics or digestive correctives, they were sold without prescription, dosage rules or warnings. Without medical oversight, silver dosing shifted from treatment to habit. Some drank diluted drops daily, others applied pastes onto lingering skin lesions or sore gums. In small towns, chronic users began showing signs: greyish fingernails, ash-coloured lips. When full discoloration struck, it did so publicly. Bank tellers, clerks and shopkeepers turned visibly blue in broad daylight. Manufacturers deflected blame, citing impurities or misuse. But investigators traced the cause: long-term ingestion of colloidal or nitrate silver, accumulating silently until skin pigment tipped beyond recovery. No reformulation followed. With no unified regulation and no requirement for disclosure, the same compounds remained on shelves, still marketed, still unchecked, still irreversible after the fact. By the 1920s, modern antibiotics and antiseptics began replacing silver in hospitals and clinics. Sulfur drugs, and later penicillin, offered faster results without the visible aftermath. Medical societies advised ending internal silver prescriptions. Pharmacies purged older compounds, and formularies quietly dropped silver from internal use listings. Its clinical era had passed. But the decision came too late for those already treated. The skin that had taken on silver kept it, unchanged by time or health. Patients cured of infections continued to darken year by year. Outdoors, the colour intensified. In private, some avoided mirrors. In public, others wore gloves, veils, or avoided daylight altogether. No rinse, surgery, or substitute could dislodge what light had fixed beneath the skin. The body's own chemistry had bound the particles in place, deep within the dermis and glands. Argyria offered no flare-up or remission. It was not illness, but inscription. The treatment was over, but for many the mark remained for life.